I spontaneously decided to look around my dorm room and I looked under my bed and opened the cooler and found the cord to my blue snowball. So now the audio sounds even worse than my old microphone, so that's even cooler. Going back and watching Tom and Jerry made me realize how terrible all of the new cartoons are now. Now I know I'm critical on all the new cartoon shows like SpongeBob and Loud House, but cartoons back then you literally had to draw every frame you see, and each frame had meaning to someone. It's not just the animation that made these old cartoons good. The story had such an amazing flow to it. Each character had their own voices and personalities to them that when all the characters were together, it made the show feel even more complete. You go to a show like SpongeBob and take out characters like Mr. Krabs and Sandy for an episode, or even a full season, and you forget they're even a part of the show. The secondary characters in these old cartoons felt like main characters. They weren't treated like secondary characters. They had their own plot beats that drove the story further. The character designs were also different. You don't just have the same model repeated just for simplicity. They weren't one-note characters that stay the same throughout the show's run. Every character nowadays falls back on their same tropes. When writers can't think of what they want to do, they always go back to what worked before, which leaves the show always feeling the same and never growing. So my favorite 50s show is Tom and Jerry. Jesus, it sounds like I'm giving you a presentation on Tom and Jerry. Tom was portrayed as the villain, but Jerry was just as much of a villain as Tom. There were no good characters in the show, but even in their hatred, they sometimes teamed up to take down some other problem in the story. Tom and Jerry never talked, but they still had more character development than most shows in general. Tom's goal is to take down Jerry, either to eat him or because someone told him to, but in the end, he can never get him. You know he'll never get Jerry, but you can never tell what's going to happen in the story and where it's going. Jerry is just trying to survive off what he can find lying around. Like, this is my actual favorite part. Just, Jerry's home was just an amalgamation of trash and objects. It was so cool seeing the traps and just, like, the general stuff he just built. You would have his, like, house be made out of, like, toothpicks and just stuff found around the house. It was, I'd always, as a kid, just try to build stuff that I saw in Jerry's house. It was like the coolest part of the show. I got sidetracked there for a second. But they evened it out with Tom doing the same amount of damage to Jerry. Each episode had no dry spots. They were always progressing the narrative forward with every scene. There weren't spots where it felt like it dragged on just to extend time. I mean, why would they? They had to draw every single scene. Painstakingly draw every single frame. The humor was also there. It was Three Stooge-like, which I guess fit it best. Two animals trying to kill each other, but no one ever wins. We don't talk about new Tom and Jerry. That's some BS right there. I mean, they don't even look the same. It's like basically new characters. I mean, look at this. Look at this. You're ruining my childhood. This show also didn't stick to a normal format. They weren't limited to the same owners or the same location. The location was always different. You could go from a hotel in Paris to a house to getting mugged in an alleyway. So, yeah. They also had their own stories in the episodes. It wasn't just like cat and mouse chase. Tom would always try to get with some girl and then eventually fail. Considering the very last episode, yeah, that was a dark episode. So why can't modern cartoons be as well known and as popular as these old ones? Well, simply put, they're boring. They just have no purpose of being a show other than for corporate greed. It's either an adaptation or some other media reboot because they can't think of anything better to do nowadays. Or they do make something original and they give it the same sitcom cartoon tropes that fail like every other show does. Off the top of my head, I can't think of a cartoon show in the past 10 years that's been so popular my grandparents even know what it is. It's just honestly sad. I know I'm complaining a lot, so I'll just sit here by myself and go open up goddamn Boomerang and watch Tom and Jerry.